What it do, everyone? I am not a LARPer, and recently in the DC media space, there's been a lot of hubbub about the lack of representation in their comics. DC has an almost infinitely wide roster of characters to choose from, and in the past 1,200 days, there has not been a single ongoing Black-led DC book in the mainline continuity. So yes, while there have been Black-led titles in the past, such as Dawn of DC's relaunches of Cyborg and Black Lightning, or Mr. Terrific Year 1 and Green Lantern War Journal, those are only miniseries that weren't built to last longer than at most 12 issues, let alone something like Cyborg that only lasted 5 issues. The last ongoing title that DC published with a black character as the lead in the mainline continuity was I Am Batman, which concluded with issue number 18 on February 14th, 2023. And the key word here was the mainline continuity. So yes, while Absolute Green Lantern currently has a black lead within the Absolute universe with Joe Mullen, the Absolute line of books is made to be an Elseworld story that exists outside the mainline continuity. I don't mean to talk down the Absolute universe in any way. The Absolute universe is doing great things for comics and doing even better things for DC as a whole. But the fact that DC hasn't produced a mainline title with a black lead in over 3 years is just unreasonable. And a quick gotcha that's been going around to combat this point is the idea that black characters don't sell well for DC, so that's why they're not getting leads in books. But it makes for a very unfair argument considering how many characters get new titles even with their history of poor sales. And this is especially prevalent in the next level phase for DC, where characters like Jonah Hex and Batwoman are getting new titles even though they have a history of poor sales. And especially looking at Jonah Hex, he's a character that no one's asking for. And I don't mean to throw shade at this book, because so far I think it's the best and most well-written title that Next Level has produced. But The Fury of Firestorm could have gone with Jason Rusch as the lead instead of Ronnie Raymond. I seriously can't sit here and believe that with all of the new books coming out with Next Level, not a single one was considered to have Vixen or Jon Stewart or Steel or Mr. Terrific as the lead of their own book. Needless to talk about the neglect of the Milestone universe, which includes wildly popular characters like Static, who not only has had long runs in the past but a multiple season TV show. Static is being slept on heavily at DC, and is a character that has been requested for years to have an ongoing series, but no matter what they put out, it always gets cut short. Recently, this past February, DC published a Milestone event book in The Dakota Incident, where rumors said that this was DC's test to see if black characters can sell. Not only did this book spark massive critical success, it outsold local comic book shops around the country. First off, I want to point out that I find it ridiculous that a company is willing to wager the marketability of an entire race in this medium on a single event book that they themselves failed to promote. Secondly, I want to also point out that I understand it takes time to actually produce a comic. No one expected for the Dakota Incident to be released, and then hear announcements for 5 new black-led ongoings immediately after. But the thing is, throughout this video, I've neglected to mention a movement in the comic book community that's currently going on, and that is DC So White. This is a movement that has a website that displays all the information I just discussed, with at the very top of the page featuring the amount of days that have gone by since the last ongoing black-led book. At the time of this video, the number is 1,203 days. This is a fairly well-known movement that has caught the attention of higher-ups at DC, including Scott Snyder, who has even addressed the situation of the lack of black-led titles. He mentions that they are aware of the problem and says that some books in Next Level weren't ready yet, so he can't say that any black-led books are set in stone. But he clarifies that they are actively working on it. So my question is, with fans so vocal about an obvious issue, should we not be in the know? I ask this because with us not knowing the future of black-led characters in DC leads the fandom to doing something that is going to be rash for the company. And that brings us to the topic of this video, DC Blackout, which is also described as Phase 2 of DC So White. All of the information for Blackout is on the website, but the goal is for DC to announce 1 to 3 solo ongoing titles starring black characters, and these titles should have black creative teams to tell authentic narratives. On top of that, allow these titles immunity from cancellation for 2 years to allow these characters to enter the cultural zeitgeist and have trade paperbacks and collected editions available for fans who want to purchase in that format. The website also states that we want proper promotion for these books in order to reach as vast an audience as possible. So in order for DC to hear and listen to the requests of this movement, DC Blackout requests DC fans to boycott DC's current books. Now, this comes in the form of removing DC books from our pull lists until this announcement comes about. Pull lists and pre-orders directly influence sales and tells DC which books are wanted and which ones aren't. And of course, this is different than going into a comic book shop and naturally buying comics that are already on the shelves, because in this instance, the comic shop has already purchased those back issues, so DC has already made those sales based on those purchases. So if you must read DC in this time, that is the most effective way of making the message clear while also getting to read your books month to month. Otherwise, it's requested by the movement to minimize the collateral damage of boycotting one of the two big comic book distributors, and this comes in the form of many ways. One way is just to start buying books from other companies with the money that you would have used on your pull list, especially in order to keep the creators' careers afloat. An example of this would be if you have Absolute Martian Manhunter on your pull list, consider buying Assorted Crisis Events so you can read a new great story that is still written by Denny Camp. Another way is to pay your current pull list without purchasing the books for yourself, or if you do decide to take the books, to donate them. This way you're not hurting your local comic book shop in the process. See, DC is pretty active with their fan base, so needless to say that if they're not aware about this movement already, they will be very soon. And if that's the case, if they truly are actively working on getting a Black-led ongoing series on the shelf, there's truly no reason to hide the details, because the longer they wait, the longer they'll hurt. So as of 3 days ago at the time of recording this video is the day where Blackout started. And because of Blackout, this movement has reached more and more ears. And because it's reaching more and more people have opinions that they are sharing. And one of the most common complaints I've heard in the past few days is, why is this movement only focusing on black characters instead of the diversity of characters in the DC universe, including multiple ethnicities and multiple cultures? I think that this is a complaint not made in good faith, considering that it all has to start somewhere. And where it's starting right now is a movement that's focused on Black-led series. I hope this movement inspires others to form their own movements, in hopes of getting Hispanic or Asian characters more focus outside of just an ensemble book. But right now, the purpose of DC So White and DC Blackout is to focus on black characters right now. Before I conclude things here, I want to point out that this video has been much more of an information dump than sharing my actual opinion. My honest thoughts on this movement have changed much in the past day or two. Initially, I was against Blackout as a whole, because comics and collecting is a core hobby of mine and a great source of escapism, and I don't want to give that up and miss out on my favorite characters and stories of all time. But the truth is, this is a really important issue that won't end unless we do something about it. And the beauty is, we absolutely have the power to do so. This movement wasn't formed yesterday. So if DC won't listen to their words, they'll definitely listen to our wallets. And I want to be perfectly clear. I personally will not be going cold turkey with the company. I still intend to pick up The Flash and Absolute Batman month by month, but everything else I'll put on hold until a new ongoing is announced. Otherwise, I'm in full support here. I personally don't expect the vast majority of supporters to just up and donate their pull list budget. People work hard to make their money, they have payments to make. So to just essentially throw it at the air isn't something that I or anyone else should really expect of everyone. In the end, shops and creators might honestly take a hit, but it's on DC now to minimize the damage. So in the meantime, I'm gonna hope to see a Static book, a Mr. Terrific book, a John Stewart Green Lantern book, and I know this is kind of against the movement considering it's an ensemble book, but I would love to see another run of the Terrifics. Mr. Terrific is DC's most recent breakout hero, and his team was the most successful thing that came out of the new age of heroes. So honestly, bring him back. It was a great book and I'd love to see more of it. And I love Mr. Terrific, so let's see more of him too. And specifically John Stewart, if he's really gonna be the main Green Lantern of the DCU, we need to get him more stories, man. We can't have the main Green Lantern's two biggest things in comics be Mosaic and War Journal. Otherwise, I just fear that John will be stealing Hal's stories in the DCU. So before John eventually gets his own Green Lantern movie, please, let's get a John Stewart Green Lantern run that lasts at least 25 to 30 issues. Get him some good stories that we can run off of. On top of that, I'd love to see more Vixen. She's a really cool character, and the Red is one of the most neglected yet interesting avenues in the DC universe. I wouldn't want this to be an ensemble book, but I would love to see a book where Vixen travels and learns about the other forces in DC, where she can run into characters like Levi Kamei's Swamp Thing or Cyborg. The last character I want to bring up is Ace West. In my honest opinion, I think Ace is a horrible character. I don't like what he represents or what he came from, and the mainline Flash book is doing nothing to help build him. But I want to love this character. I think giving Ace a mini where he finally grows outside the Kid Flash mantle would do wonders for his character. And if it works well, maybe we can see him break away from the mainline Flash in the near future. Consider this Ace West Flash Year 1. I also want to point out that I want to see a Steel mainline ongoing, but personally I really just don't care about his character. If he ever gets a mainline ongoing, I'll pick up the first issue, maybe give the first arc a look, but I just have no affinity for the character at the moment. But yeah, that's more or less all I had to say about this movement. I thought it was a topic that was interesting and needed to yap about it. So yeah, let's go Knicks. Come on baby, beat the Spurs.